Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Warehouse. I'm your host, Josh Johnson, and today, like always, we have an incredibly special guest and a very interesting topic. Today, I have with me Delaitre Hollinger, the founding co-director of the Florida Civil Rights Museum. Thank you for joining us, Delaitre.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And our conversation today is going to be about something that you have really spent your entire life focused on. You have been a newsmaker in this area for a long time, and that is the preservation of local community and historical treasures and figures and the things that they have done to decorate this place and other places, actually, because your work has stretched outside of the Tallahassee area, but we're going to focus on it locally today. So thank you for coming in and talking a little bit about historical preservation with us today.
My pleasure.
So I want to jump right into this thing, and I want to ask you what I think is the lowest hanging fruit question, but maybe the most important. Why is preservation an important thing?
Well, preservation is an important thing for future generations.
Sure.
It's an important thing because it's important for us all to know where we came from so that we know where we're going. When you advocate for the preservation of a historic property, or when you work to see that a local hero or shero is honored or recognized in a significant way, the hope is that people will finally know these names and that they will be inspired by some of the contributions that came from people, many of who were born and raised right here in Tallahassee, and that some other Tallahasseans will be inspired to also stand up, speak up, and step out and make some contributions for their community.
You brought up a great point during that last answer, and you said that this preservation is important, not just because you can see where you come from, but it also guides you and helps you know where you're going. I've seen that the majority, if not all of your work has focused on the preservation of local African-American figures and institutions and structures. I, and you as well, we come from the same tradition. We're Black men. I think that this type of bridge between the past and the future has always been so important because it gives you not only a glimpse into where you come from, but it gives you some inspiration, right? Some exposure to people that have done it in sometimes impossible circumstances, which lets you know that you can even manage in the hard ones. And so why has, for you, I guess I gave my answer on that, but why for you has the preservation of African-American figures and institutions and structures and entities been so important?
Well, it's important. For instance, you mentioned we're Black men.
Yes.
I was born and raised here in Tallahassee, but grew up on the south side of Tallahassee. Mm-hmm. And so there weren't always places or faces that looked like mine. And so I wanted to make sure that those who were growing up behind me had that there were names on facilities, that there were parks and recreational facilities, that there were streets, that there were other areas of town named for people that looked like me. Mm-hmm. Because now I grew up on FAMU's campus, but over on the south side, there weren't many places that were named for African Americans. So it was important to me to change that for those kids that were growing up. It's not as if we didn't have significant figures here in town, but they just had not received the recognition that they were due.
You know what? That reminds me of something. I kind of want to work through this together so you don't feel like I'm putting you on the spot. But when you were talking about preservation of local African-American figures, it popped in my head that writ large in this country right now, we have been having conversations, debates, and a lot of animus over a topic of preservation that is probably the most hotbed issue right now, and that's the preservation of Confederate or Southern statues and the renaming of these military bases. Do you think, now obviously I know that you don't agree with what they stood for. But as a preservationist, do you believe that there's still a responsibility to name those things, to keep those things, to hold space for those things in any way?
I think that there's a place for everything. I think that in some cases where facilities have already been renamed, that we should make sure that we are maintaining that and that those decisions stand. But we also have many historical museums. I am a museum director, so I am an advocate for taking photographs, curating exhibits,
Sure.
preserving artifacts, and displaying those things in a historical museum space.
Absolutely. So I think that is, I guess, happy medium trivializes it, but that is where most common sense people fall on it. That, all right, maybe you don't have to destroy it, but maybe it also doesn't have to be on Front Street. Maybe you can move these things into a collection where they could be housed to remember always, but not to offend or to divide or whatever. I thought that was a perfect answer for that, Delaitre. And speaking of, you keep on bringing up these good points. This is an art and culture programming, an art and culture show. Not all the time do we bridge the gap like we're about to do between art and culture, because while your preservation work is really a endeavor in culture, you also have delved and dealt with the arts, because I mean, anybody who's ever got an MFA or a BFA knows that museum studies or museum history is just as much a part of art as painting or whatever. And so you've done both. You've curated museums and you've fought. When you talk about that, are you talking about the Taylor House?
Yes, so I'm talking
Tell
about
us a little bit about the Taylor House.
Sure. So the Taylor House was actually my first experience as a museum curator. And so the Taylor House was built in 1894 by Lewis Washington Taylor, who was a Wakulla County native. He was the founding president of the Tallahassee branch NAACP in 1919, and he was a local educator. During that time, we had many one-room rural schools that operated as elementary and junior high schools.
How many one-room rural schools did you say? You just said many.
There were many.
Oh, okay.
There were many.
I got you.
I can pinpoint a number.
That's okay. No, you don't have to. I just
but
thought
there
I
were
heard.
numerous.
Gotcha.
Numerous. And he happened to be principal of Lake Hall School. You may have heard of Lake Hall.
Absolutely.
There was a preservation effort recently. And he was also principal of Bel Air School, which was off of Woodville Highway, and also Centerville School, and also taught at the original Lincoln High School. So he was a prominent and significant figure in Tallahassee. He, along with, during the time that he became president of the local NAACP chapter, branch rather, John G. Riley was his secretary, and also he and Professor Riley and Samuel H. Coleman, who Coleman Library at Florida A&M is named for, were the founders of Emancipation Day activities here in Tallahassee.
Let me ask you this. Correct me if I'm wrong. You were at one point the president of the the local chapter
Yes.
of NAACP too,
Yes.
right? And so my question is, if you and Mr. Taylor both held these positions, and this doesn't have to be a specific answer, in doing this work, do you find yourself time and time again in the stories of these people? Whether it's emotionally, whether that's something that you've been through, whether that's something you connect to.
Definitely.
Do they bring you back to yourself?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Anytime I can, especially if I'm able to look at an image of a person who lived so long ago, and I'm able to relate to their life story, because these were gentlemen who were operating in terrible times under the most extreme of circumstances. And, it was during the presidency of Woodrow Wilson, and during a time where there was a lot of racial terror, race massacres that were going on across the country. But these gentlemen were employed by the Leon County school system. And when I say these gentlemen, I'm talking about Professor J.G. Riley, Professor L.W. Taylor. They were employed by the Leon County school system. They were leading schools, principals of schools. So they were shaping and forming young minds. And they were also leading the largest civil rights organization in the country. And so they were bold and they were courageous. They were landowners, property owners. And so I look at the things that they were able to do over 100 years ago. And I think to myself, there's nothing stopping me from reaching my dreams, reaching my goals, climbing any ladder I choose to climb. There's absolutely no reason why I should not be able to operate in this time if they could operate in that time.
This beautiful lasso that you operate with, winding it up and throwing it back and putting it around some historical figure and pulling them into modernity or the current age for us to enjoy or for us to learn about or educate ourselves with. It's a beautiful work. And you, and I know that this has been a team and a collective effort, but I want to give you your flowers too. You part and parcel are responsible for the resurrection of so many local names, Lillian Spencer, and so many people. Let me ask you this, bringing it into, and we'll go back to Lillian Spencer, obviously, because she holds a special place in your heart and some special work in your heart. But is there anything that you're working on currently that we don't know about? Or is there any name that floats in your head that you think should have something that doesn't have something yet? Or is there anything new?
Sure. Well, there are quite a few. I'll answer the first part of your question first. So, be on the lookout for the Florida Civil Rights Museum's Florida Civil Rights and Education Heritage Trail, Volume 1, and it features 30 historic sites and or figures who were significant to the state, and it chronicles sites throughout Florida, Broward County, Escambia County, Marion.
Is this a physical trail or is this
Miami-Dade.
a book?
It is a book.
Okay.
It is a book. We have thousands of copies, so we are eager to get those distributed throughout the state. Also, it is, but not only is it physical, it's digital.
I got you.
So you can go to FloridaCivilRightsMuseum.org and click on programs and click on Florida Civil Rights and Education Heritage Trail. I am interested. There are many people who I'm interested in honoring here in the community, not just African American, but others as well, who made some significant contributions who I think should be recognized. One of them is Daisy Young. She was a financial aid administrator at FAMU, but she was a pillar in the local NAACP. Reverend R.N. Gooden, who was a civil rights activist here in Tallahassee, civil rights icon. There are many members of the judiciary who I think have not gotten their flowers yet. We recently were able to get the federal courthouse downtown named for Judge Joseph Hatchett. But there are so many names. I don't know if I can just pinpoint one or two, but many people who still deserve recognition in this community. Reverend Herbert Alexander is a name that comes to mind when we think about local civil rights leaders who have never really gotten recognized for their work. He was a administrator in the School of Business and Industry at FAMU, former VP of Student Affairs there, and worked in the local SCLC, worked with Dr. King and others. So there are many names I could call who we still need to recognize for their service.
You've been doing this, I think I read, since you're about 12 or 13 years old, right?
Yes.
And when you're a much younger man, I mean, we're still young, but when you're a much younger man, you found the National Association for the Preservation of African American History and Culture.
Yes.
Let me ask you something. Do you ever get tired doing this work? Does it ever become a burden? And I mean that in a poetic way. I'm not saying, do you ever get sick of it? I'm saying, do you ever get tired?
Most definitely. I have to say I do, because while, and I say this all the time, while preserving African American history should not be a political thing. It is inherently political. I found that out over the years. And the reason why I have so many relationships with political figures, elected officials, or what have you, is because I have found that it's impossible to do the work that I'm called to do without having those relationships. It's inherently political, unfortunately, to preserve African American history.
And it's going to become more political.
Yes,
It's becoming more political.
yes, and but you know, Josh, it has always been, it has always been. We here in Tallahassee have had elected officials over the years who have been open, especially in recent times, to making sure that we preserve these names and making sure that these histories and these legacies and these stories are safeguarded. But it's becoming even more important than I've been saying to make sure that we are holding on to this history, that we're protecting it. Now it's not just preserving it, it's protecting it.
And being stewards of it.
Yes.
Absolutely. Servants. So maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, as you know, because we've run across each other in this work, I was doing some art project work, and a mural was going up, and one of the names that was recommended was Dr. Humphreys. And I don't get to say Dr. Humphreys' name enough on this show. Have you ever thought about doing something for Humphreys?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There was a push a few years ago, as a matter of fact. You're familiar with Robert and Trudy Perkins Way, which was named on September 10th, 2021 for those two civil rights pioneers in our community. But the street used to be Gamble Street, named for Major Robert Campbell, who was a slave owner. But during that time, there were some discussions to name something after Dr. Humphreys. I really, Josh, wanted to see his statue go up on campus because I grew up on FAMU's campus during the time that he was the president, and have had many opportunities to speak with him and interface with him, and he was just a giant
literally
figure
and figuratively.
Literally and figuratively for the culture, for all of us.
What a
really,
human.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, what a human. I was agreeing
yes.
with
Absolutely.
you. Yeah.
Absolutely. And he's just a monolith in higher education.
Man, you're not going to make me cry on my own show. Let's stop.
Yeah.
Let's stop talking about Dr.
Yeah, but there
But I
needs to
agree
be
with
something for Dr. Humphreys for in this community. He grew up in Apalachicola, but there needs to be something for him in this community for all that he did for higher education. I can't even just limit it to FAMU, but higher education and generations of students.
Well, I want to close this thing out by saying to you first, thank you for coming by. And while we are both hopefully far off from our own natural demises, it's not always the leaning tree that falls first. And so whenever guys like you go, or people like you go, I hope that there are other people like you that hold a torch to remembering the type of work that you have done. Because while you are stewarding this pioneering aim to locate people from the past, there's people in the present like you who deserve their flowers just as much. And I appreciate you for existing. I appreciate you for coming by and talking to me in this audience today. Thank you so much, Delaitre.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Great set.